Inside one of the dorm rooms, Peter was waiting inside patiently for either Vorden or Quinn to come back. Usually he would have gone off with Vorden, but the way Vorden had acted earlier had given him second thoughts. Even if Vorden was worried about Quinn, it made no sense for him to attack someone as soon as they opened the door. It was irrational, and not just that, but something stuck out to him at the time. The fact that Vorden said that Vorden wasn't his name. Peter wasn't exactly sure what he had meant by that. While Peter was busy worrying about the others, there was a sudden knock at the door. "Are they back already?" Peter said as he answered the door. When he opened the door, though, Peter immediately tried closing it, but a hand had come out and held the door open. "Looks like he's not here," Momo said, looking around the room. It was Momo who was at the door, and behind him he had 2 other second-year students. Peter didn't have a good feeling about this. He remembered the last time they had met and how he had given Vorden a warning. Not only that, but one of the second-year students standing behind Momo, Peter recognized as well. When Vorden was taken away to the assembly hall, one of the second-year students stood outside as a guard and wouldn't allow Peter to go past him. "Well, since you're the only one here, why don't you come with us?" Momo said. "We have some plans, and we think you might be the perfect person to help us." Peter felt like he had no choice but to listen. Momo was a level 6 user. He was stronger than any of the current first-years, and he knew if he refused, he would become a target. Before, Vorden would have been able to help him, but not against these guys. They were too strong. Back on the school rooftop, Loop had just arrived to see his friend being held by what looked like some humanoid creature. Loop and Faye had agreed to meet on the roof to discuss what combat classes they should change to now that he and Brandon had been kicked out. When Loop had arrived at the roof, he was surprised to see his friend lying there covered in blood. It was dark, so it was hard to see clearly, but as the creature held Faye in his arms and was biting into his neck, he could see glowing red eyes. Loop's mind instantly went thinking that it was some type of monster, but that's when he noticed that the so-called monster was wearing the same school uniform as them. An object started to grow out of Loop's body. It was a long, thin, white piece of bone that was the same size as a small sword. He pulled it out and threw it straight at Quinn. The flying sword bone flew straight at Quinn, but he knocked it away with his hand. Almost straight after, another piece of bone came at him, and behind it was Loop running right towards him. In both of Loop's hands, he held 2 white bone swords and swung them down at Quinn. However, Quinn managed to grab onto both of the bone swords, stopping them in place. When Quinn tried to use his strength to break the bones, surprisingly, nothing was happening. That was because of the difference in ability level. Loop was a level 3 ability user. The special substance he was able to create out of his body was stronger than that of a basic tier beast weapon. As the 2 were held in place, Quinn realized his strength was greater and started to push Loop back. When Quinn started to push Loop back, he quickly took in a deep breath and blew out. Straight after, white bone spikes had appeared on his body all over. The bone spikes had managed to pierce Quinn's body in several different places, but luckily he was able to avoid a blow to the head, and his hands were protected by the gauntlets. 10 of 20 HP. It was a strong attack, and it had hurt Quinn badly. Loop retracted the bone spikes into his body and was ready for the same attack again. As he breathed in, though, he could see Quinn swipe his hand like a claw. Loop ducked down, and instead of hitting him, the attack continued to go past, and the red lines eventually disappeared into nothing. "Let's see what you're hiding under that mask," Loop said as he stabbed one of the bone swords into Quinn's foot, and then lifted another one at his face. However, Quinn decided to use all his strength to pull his foot from the sword. The bone sword stuck in his foot had ripped through his skin and tore through his shoes. His foot was now a mangled mess, but at least he was free. Doing his best to ignore the pain, Quinn jumped back a few feet to create distance between himself and Loop. This was bad. Not only did Loop have a strong ability, but unlike the people he had faced before, Loop was a good fighter. Quinn's sloppy skills weren't going to save him. Sure, he had more strength than his opponent, but that meant nothing if he couldn't hit him. 5 of 20 HP, blood bank auto use. 10 of 20 HP, 90 millimeters left in blood bank. In nearly an instant, Quinn's foot had healed. That's when he came up with a plan. 20 of 20 HP, 70 millimeters left in blood bank. Quinn had used the rest of his blood bank to heal himself. With this, he would be able to bridge the gap in skill. As long as Quinn didn't take a fatal blow to the head, he was sure the system would heal him in time. This time, as Quinn rushed forward, he was no longer reserved about using his skills. He cast blood swipe after blood swipe, swinging his arms out. 14 of 20 HP. He had thrown a total of 6 blood swipes in rapid succession. They had come out fast, and all Loop could do was defend with his bones. The first few attacks had been blocked, but Loop could feel how powerful they were. 8 of 20 HP. After defending against the first 6 attacks, Loop thought he was done, but another 6 blood swipes came straight after, and his bone swords could no longer take it, and eventually snapped. 18 of 20 HP, 50 milliliters of blood left in blood bank. Seeing Quinn continue to rush forward after him, and his bone swords were broken, there was only one thing Loop could do. He took in another deep breath, and just when Quinn was close enough, he blew out, making bone spikes appear all over his body. However, Quinn wasn't slowing down, and continued to run straight into the bone spikes, piercing several parts of his body. At the same time, he threw a punch out as hard as he could, sending Loop flying backwards. Then, to follow it up, Quinn released another barrage of blood swipes. 5 of 20 HP, 10 of 20 HP, 40 milliliters of blood left in blood bank. As each of the blood swipes reached Loop's body, he stood his ground, reinforcing his body with bones. But not long after, he could no longer take any more punishment and collapsed to the ground. Opponent has been defeated. 50 EXP has been received. 130 of 400. The fight was a lot tougher than Quinn had thought. The only reason why he was able to be as reckless as he was because of his blood bank. Quinn hated to think about how he would have fought if he didn't have the skill. Quinn then looked back at Faye, who was on the ground. It seemed like after being bitten by him, his targets would stay asleep for some time, which was a good thing, but now it was time for him to feast on a new person. Quinn walked over to Loop's body and cast his Inspect skill. Loop Savvy, Ability, Bone Manipulation, HP 1 of 25, Blood type O negative. Finally, Quinn was going to find out what Blood type O had for him. As Quinn looked at Loop's body on the ground, he noticed something strange. His current health was at 10 HP, and his body was naturally drawn to the blood. Whenever his health was low, he would get hungrier. That bit was a given, but something that also happened was his 2 canine teeth would start to grow longer. When they grow longer, it made it easier to victim. This would only give him the extra stat point. He needed a good supply to also fill his blood bank. Quinn lifted Loop's body from the ground. Only a few inches were separating their faces. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm finding it easier every time I do this. 20 of 20 HP restored. O blood type has been consumed. Blood bank has been filled. Quinn had a few guesses at what the O type would do, but this was better than he had imagined. Quinn quickly opened up his status screen and wanted to decide what to put the stat into right away. Strength 13, 3. Stamina 12. Agility 13. Quinn debated internally for a few minutes whether he should put his stat point into stamina or not. If he did, his stats would become well-rounded. But he thought about all the people who were strong in the world right now. They were usually a specialist in a certain area. A jack of all trades was something too weak in this day and age. Not only that, but Quinn felt like his growth would be quicker if he specialized in strength or agility. It would allow him to carry on weak opponents. Then, when he needed to, he could increase his stamina points at another time. It wasn't like Quinn was going to be facing an army of opponents anytime soon. In the end, Quinn decided to stick to his original plan and add his stat points into agility. Quinn stood in place looking at the duo's body, wondering what he should do. He was fairly certain that he had acted fast enough during his fight with Faye. He hoped that he hadn't seen anything that could give him away, but he couldn't say the same for Loop. When Quinn started to inspect Faye's body, he noticed that the bite marks on Faye's neck from Quinn had already disappeared. The doctor said the same thing happened with Layla. Perhaps some type of effect from my ability? Quinn thought. Well, that solves that problem. Now what to do with you? Quinn pondered, looking at Loop's body. Although Quinn wore his mask, there was still the chance of someone figuring out it was him. After all, how many students used gauntlets as a weapon and also would have a grudge to attack these two? However, Quinn wasn't that afraid of them finding out his real identity. Actions like this were commonplace at the academy. Quinn wasn't afraid that Loop might tell everyone what he had seen. Even if he did, no one would believe what he had said. Throughout all of the history of abilities, there had never been any reports of an ability where someone had to consume something to gain power. The power had always come from within. And with no markings on their neck to prove it, they would be treated as madmen without any type of proof. While Quinn was in the middle of his thoughts, he was startled when he heard the door start to open again. Quinn moved instantly at a lightning speed to try and flee the scene, but quickly stopped when he saw it was someone familiar opening the door. "There you are," Layla said. She then looked down and noticed the two bodies on the floor. "Quick, we have to get out of here. The guards will be here any second now." Quinn had taken too much time. He wasn't planning to take out two people. When a student was knocked out in the school or badly beaten, the wristwatch was able to ping their location to the school and inform them they were hurt. Then, once this message was pinged to them, the guards would pick the students up and take them to the hospital. No one knew how it quite worked, as it was amazing. The watch was able to tell how much health someone had. Rumors were spread that it was an ability of an original that created the watches. Quinn and Layla hastily ran down the stairs, but stopped as they could hear the sound of footsteps coming in their direction. "Oh no, we can't go this way." Layla then started to look around the roof. "I have a plan. Grab me and let's jump." "Are you crazy?" Quinn said. "Even with my strength from this height, I would at least break my legs, and even if I can heal, I still feel pain. Just trust me, come on, I can use my ability." Quinn quickly lifted Layla with both arms, despite his protest. With his strength, Layla was lighter than ever. He jumped onto the fence and looked down. The school was incredibly high. It was at least 4 stories. "I'm counting on you," Quinn muttered as he leapt off the building. As the duo was falling from the rooftop at an incredible speed, Layla closed her eyes and started to concentrate. Sweat started to form on her brows when suddenly the two of them started to decrease in speed. They eventually reached the ground. "Hey, that was pretty cool. You can fly?" Quinn asked, stunned. "No, my ability isn't that strong yet," Layla replied. "At most, I can only slow us down. Come on, let's head back to our rooms." As the two of them headed to their rooms, Quinn explained everything that had happened on the rooftop. "Wait, what? Then aren't you worried that Loop might tell someone what happened?" "Not really. He has nothing to gain from it. Without any proof, no one would believe him anyway. But there is one problem. There is the chance that if he does find out it's me, then he would come back with the others and attack me. I could take them out one-on-one, but as a group, I don't feel like I could stand a chance." "It's true," Layla replied. "A lot of the students have already formed their own groups and gangs to protect each other. All that's left are the ones that are too weak to be a part of anything." "I know. Why don't you create your own group? I could be like a sub-leader. Of course, we would keep your thing a secret." "That's not a bad idea, especially if in the future we get targeted even more. Maybe I should ask Vorden if he knows anyone." The look on Layla's face suddenly dropped as she heard those words. "I told you he was bad news, Quinn." "What, did something happen?" "It's best if you hear it from your friend Peter. Maybe then you will realize how bad it was. After all, he saw the whole thing." In the doctor's office, the single doctor, Haley, was busy as usual, and especially at night, when the guards gathered the students. "How can the school just let these sorts of things happen? Surely there's a better way," Haley thought. As she went to check up on Faye, she noticed he was now sleeping calmly. After healing the claw marks on him, and there wasn't anything unusual. However, when she looked at Loop, something had caught her eye that concerned her. In a certain spot on the boy's neck, there were 2 small puncture wounds similar to that of a snakebite. She had seen these signs before on another student, and just like before, the wound was already starting to heal itself. Haley then tapped her watch and waited a few moments for it to connect. "Hey, General, I believe there might be a stray beast roaming around the school. There have been some strange signs on 2 students. I'm a little bit worried," Haley said. "Please, for me, would just investigate it?" Fine, whatever you want. How can I say no to my daughter?" Just then, though, as Haley got off her call, 2 military men came rushing in with another student on their back, soaked in blood. "Hurry, this student is in critical condition," the guard shouted. They quickly placed the student on the bed, and Haley quickly got to work. She tried and tried to use her abilities, but it was useless. The student was already too far gone. Haley then tapped her wristwatch once again to open up a digital report log. "Report, confirming the time of death 9:30 p.m., a first-year student named Brandon Richardson."
Subscribe to the Pocket FM Blockbuster YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notifications. Check out our channel for more exciting shows.